the Amor Fati. Imagine waking up one morning and everything goes wrong. Your coffee spills all over your shirt. Your car refuses to start. You get stuck in traffic for an hour. And when you finally stumble into work, you realize you're wearing mismatched socks and your shirt is inside out. Now, what if I told you that the secret to happiness isn't avoiding these disasters, but actually loving them? Loving the spilled coffee, the dead car battery, the mind-numbing traffic jam, and yes, even your ridiculous fashion choices. Sounds completely insane, right? But stay with me, because today we're diving into a philosophy so wild, so counterintuitive, that it just might be the key to unshakable peace. Welcome to the strange and wonderful world of Amor Fati, the art of loving your fate. Now, before you start thinking that this is some kind of toxic positivity cult, let's set the record straight. Amor Fati doesn't mean pretending that everything is perfect when it clearly isn't. It doesn't mean plastering a fake smile on your face while your life burns down around you. It means something much deeper, much richer. It means embracing every twist and turn of your life, the good, the bad, and the straight-up ugly, as if you had chosen it yourself, not just accepting it, loving it. Loving the heartbreak, the failure, the embarrassment, loving the fact that your cat threw up on your favorite carpet 5 minutes before your guests arrived. Because somehow, in some strange and mysterious way, it's all part of the story you were meant to live. Let's roll back the clock for a second. The idea of Amor Fati has deep roots, reaching all the way back to ancient philosophy, particularly Stoicism. Stoicism, if you're not familiar, is the ancient art of chilling out. It's about keeping your cool when life goes full soap opera on you. The Stoics, folks like Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus, believe that while we can't control what happens to us, we can always control how we respond. Life is like a wild horse. You can't always direct where it runs, but you can decide whether you scream or ride. But the actual phrase Amor Fati, meaning love of fate, didn't show up until a few centuries later when it was popularized by none other than Friedrich Nietzsche. Yes, that Nietzsche, the guy with the big mustache and even bigger ideas. Nietzsche took the Stoic concept of acceptance and cranked it up to 11. He didn't just want you to accept life's chaos. He wanted you to embrace it, dance with it, write love poems to it. Nietzsche once said, "My formula for greatness in a human being is Amor Fati." That one wants nothing to be different, not forward, not backward, not in all eternity. In other words, no takebacks, no do-overs, no if-onlys. You take your life exactly as it is, every heartbreak, every triumph, every awkward teenage phase, and you say, yes, this, exactly this. Now, let's be honest, this sounds great in theory, but in practice, it's a little harder. Imagine you lose your job. Your first instinct probably isn't to throw a party and thank the universe, but Amor Fati invites you to do just that, to see the loss not as a tragedy, but as a necessary step. Maybe getting fired is the only way you were ever going to start that business you've been dreaming about. Maybe the heartbreak is what you needed to finally understand yourself. Maybe the spilled coffee is what made you slow down enough to avoid an accident later. You see, life doesn't hand out neat little instruction manuals. It hands out puzzles, riddles, and mystery boxes. And Amor Fati is about embracing the mystery, even when it's messy, uncomfortable, or downright painful. Picture this. You're walking down the street and it starts pouring rain. You don't have an umbrella. You're getting soaked. You could curse the sky, run for cover, grumble about your bad luck. Or you could lift your arms, laugh, and dance in the rain like you're in a cheesy movie montage. Same situation, different mindset. That's the superpower of Amor Fati. Now, you might be wondering, why on earth would anyone willingly choose to love pain, failure, or misfortune? Because when you love your fate, you stop being its victim. You stop fighting reality and start working with it. Resistance creates suffering. Acceptance creates freedom. Loving creates invincibility. Think about it. Life is undefeated. No matter how hard you push against it, it will always push back harder. You can either be dragged kicking and screaming, or you can walk alongside it like an old friend. Amor Fati is about making life your partner in crime, not your enemy. Let's bring in some real-life examples. Take Thomas Edison, the guy who invented the light bulb. One night, his laboratory caught fire. Millions of dollars worth of research went up in flames. How did Edison react? He called his wife over and said, "Go get the kids. They'll never see a fire like this again." And then he got back to work. That's Amor Fati in action. Or think about Oprah Winfrey, fired from her first television job, told she was unfit for TV, she could have given up. Instead, she embraced the rejection, learned from it, and built an empire. Without the setback, there would be no Oprah as we know her. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you is actually the best thing that happens to you. But you can only see that if you love your fate, not fight it. Amor Fati doesn't just apply to the big dramatic moments though. It's a daily practice. You can start small. Next time you spill your coffee, instead of groaning, say, "Perfect. Now I have a reason to wear my backup shirt," which honestly looks better anyway. Next time you miss your bus, think, "Awesome. I needed the extra steps for my health." It's about flipping the script, turning obstacles into opportunities. Now, let's talk about the psychology behind this. Modern research backs up what the Stoics and Nietzsche were preaching all along. Studies on acceptance show that people who embrace difficult emotions, rather than suppress or fight them, experience greater resilience, better mental health, and even longer lives. Resisting reality creates stress, and stress is like acid for your soul. Acceptance, on the other hand, builds strength, flexibility, and peace. There's even a field called positive psychology that studies how focusing on meaning rather than happiness leads to a more fulfilling life. Meaning often comes from hardship, from challenge, from facing dragons, not from lounging in a hammock all day. Amor Fati aligns perfectly with this. It tells you, don't chase easy, chase meaning. Imagine your life as a novel. Would you really want to read a story where nothing bad ever happens? Where the hero faces no challenges, no setbacks, no moments of doubt? Boring, right? The best stories are the ones where the hero falls, struggles, doubts, and then rises. Your life is your story, and every difficulty you face adds depth to the plot. Now, some people hear "love your fate" and think it means passively accepting everything, like a doormat. But that's not it. Amor Fati isn't passive, it's active. It's looking at your circumstances, even the ugly ones, and saying, "All right, let's see what I can make of this." It's not lying down in defeat. It's standing up and dancing with the chaos. Take Marcus Aurelius again, writing his meditations at night while fighting wars, dealing with political backstabbing and enduring personal tragedy. His mantra wasn't, "Poor me." It was, "What stands in the way becomes the way. The obstacle becomes the path." Or, think about J.K. Rowling, writing Harry Potter as a broke, unemployed single mom. Rejected by publisher after publisher. She didn't wallow. She didn't rage at fate. She kept writing. She kept loving the process, the struggle, the grind. And eventually, she changed the world. Amor Fati asks you to do something radical, to look at the things you hate most, the loss, the failure, the embarrassment, the regret, and say, "Thank you." Because those are the things that shaped you, strengthened you, taught you what easy victories never could. When you love your fate, you stop living in the past. You stop fantasizing about some alternate universe where everything went differently. You accept that this is your universe, this is your timeline, and it's perfect, not because it's painless, but because it's real. So how can you start practicing Amor Fati in your own life? First, start noticing when you resist reality. Pay attention to those moments when you think, "This shouldn't be happening." Catch yourself. And instead of resisting, try leaning in. Second, reframe setbacks as setups. Ask yourself, how could this actually be working in my favor? Third, practice gratitude, even for the hard stuff, especially for the hard stuff. Make a habit of thanking life for its challenges. Fourth, tell yourself better stories. Instead of casting yourself as the victim, cast yourself as the hero, the struggler, the survivor, the one who rises. And finally, trust the bigger picture. Know that even if you can't see the meaning right now, it's there. Every piece matters. Every twist and turn is shaping you. Because here's the truth. Life will throw things at you that you never asked for. Heartbreaks, failures, betrayals, losses. But you have a choice. You can curse the storm. Or you can love it. You can fight your fate. Or you can embrace it. When you embrace it, when you love it, you become unstoppable, untouchable, invincible, no longer at the mercy of circumstance, but a master of it. Amor Fati is not about denying pain. It's about transforming it. It's about turning scars into art, wounds into wisdom, disasters into dance floors. So, the next time you spill your coffee, lose your job, get your heart broken, or face a storm you didn't see coming, remember this. This is not the end of the story. This is the beginning of a better one. Love your fate, love your journey, love it all. Because life isn't happening to you. It's happening for you. Every messy, beautiful, bewildering second of it. Amor, Fati, my friends. Love your fate and watch how everything changes. Antinatalism. Why some think life should hit pause. Imagine, you're floating peacefully in the infinite quiet void of non-existence. No bad hair days, no awkward text messages, no dentists asking if you floss, just pure, sweet, silent nothingness. And then, without asking for your opinion, without even a polite heads up, you're flung headfirst into existence, crying, confused, and immediately taxed emotionally, physically, and financially. Congratulations, you've been born. But wait, was this really a gift, or was it a cosmic prank? This is where antinatalism steps in, a philosophy that boldly suggests maybe being born isn't the wonderful blessing we all like to think it is. Maybe, just maybe, the kindest thing would have been to leave you in peace in that pre-birth nothingness. Sound crazy? Intriguing? Depressing? Let's dig in. First, what even is antinatalism? At its core, antinatalism is the idea that bringing new sentient beings into existence is morally problematic. Not because life has no good moments, but because suffering is inevitable and unavoidable. And once you exist, you are forced to endure it. Antinatalists argue that the amount of suffering baked into the human experience outweighs any joy we might stumble upon along the way. Now, before you start imagining a secret society of people booing at maternity wards and protesting outside playgrounds, hold on. Antinatalists aren't villains in a cartoon. They're serious thinkers, and sometimes heartbreakingly compassionate ones, who genuinely believe that creating life is exposing someone to pain they never asked for. And that raises a heavy question. Is it truly ethical to create life, knowing the dangers that come with it? Let's wind the clock back a bit. Antinatalist ideas aren't exactly new. The ancient Greeks were onto it. Sophocles, the legendary playwright, once wrote, "Never to have been born is best." In the book of Ecclesiastes, a deeply philosophical text from the Bible, it says, "And I declared that the dead, who had already died, are happier than the living who are still alive. But better than both is the one who has never been born." Even ancient Buddhists had something similar, with the concept of life being suffering at its core and liberation found in breaking free from the cycle of rebirth. In short, antinatalism didn't just fall from the sky in a Reddit thread last week. It's been quietly simmering in human thought for thousands of years. But it was David Benatar, a South African philosopher, who gave it its modern-day formal shape. In 2006, he published Better Never to Have Been, The Harm of Coming into Existence. In it, he lays out what might just be the philosophical equivalent of a mic drop. His main argument? Existing guarantees suffering. And if we could spare someone that fate simply by not bringing them into existence, isn't that the more ethical choice? His famous asymmetry argument is both simple and mind-bending. He says, "Presence of pain is bad. Presence of pleasure is good. Absence of pain, when someone doesn't exist, is good. Absence of pleasure, when someone doesn't exist, isn't bad because there's no one there to miss it." This sets up a weird imbalance. It suggests that not being born spares you harm without costing you anything good, because you don't exist to crave the good stuff you're missing. It's like not attending a terrible party. If you don't show up, you don't have to endure the bad music, the watered-down drinks, or the awkward small talk. And you're not sad about missing it, because you were never there in the first place. Sounds neat, right? But here's where things get spicy. Because when you suggest that not being born is better, you're essentially questioning one of society's most sacred beliefs, that life is inherently precious. People push back hard. They say, but what about love, laughter, chocolate chip cookies fresh out of the oven? And antinatalists answer, sure, those things are good, but they come bundled with cancer, heartbreak, betrayal, loneliness, despair, and death. In other words, life isn't a neatly wrapped gift. It's a messy deal with fine print nobody reads before they sign. Let's use an analogy. Imagine you're selling a vacation package. You tell your customer you'll get some beach days and a few nice meals. But you leave out the part where there's a 90% chance of hurricanes, food poisoning, and losing your passport in a foreign country. Would you call that an honest deal? Antinatalists say that life's sales pitch is just as shady. And there's more. They argue that since a person cannot consent to being born, and since existence carries inevitable harm, it's better not to impose life upon them without their permission. Imagine signing someone up for a lifetime roller coaster ride that includes stretches of unbearable terror, and they didn't even get to say yes. Does that seem fair? Some antinatalists even extend their logic to non-human life, arguing that preventing animal suffering too would involve reducing or stopping the breeding of sentient creatures. It's a vast and complex web of ideas, and not just a grumpy rebellion against life. Now, let's get real for a second. You might be thinking, but my life is good. I've had wonderful experiences. I'm glad I was born. And that's completely valid. Antinatalism doesn't deny that some lives can be enjoyable, but it points out that we can't guarantee a good life for new beings. Some lives are filled with unspeakable tragedy, war, abuse, famine, disease, despair. If creating life is rolling dice with someone else's fate, maybe it's not a bet we should be making. And when it comes to suffering, antinatalists don't just mean the big dramatic stuff. They mean the small, grinding, everyday pain, the sore back, the sleepless nights, the gnawing anxiety about paying bills, the fear of losing loved ones, the existential dread that hits you at 2 a.m. for no apparent reason. Even a basically good life, antinatalists argue, is stitched together with countless little wounds. Now, here's a fun, or terrifying, hypothetical. Imagine you could interview a group of unborn souls waiting in a cosmic lobby. You tell them, look, existence will give you about 80 years. You'll experience joy, love, beauty, but also heartbreak, suffering, illness, fear, disappointment, boredom, and eventually death. Would they eagerly rush forward, or would they quietly float away back into the sweet silence? We'll never know, because no one can consent to being born. And that's one of antinatalism's central points. Creating a new life isn't giving a gift. It's forcing an experience onto someone who had no say in the matter. And that's a heavy ethical burden. Now, let's step back and ask, has anyone actually tried to live by antinatalist principles? Well, sort of. There are groups and individuals who choose childlessness not out of selfishness or hedonism, but out of deep philosophical conviction. Some cite the environmental crises, others, a desire not to impose existence. The voluntary human extinction movement, for example, promotes gradual voluntary human extinction through non-reproduction, emphasizing kindness, love for the planet, and compassion for future potential beings. It's not about hating humanity. It's about loving life enough not to add to its burdens. There's also a real-world example that shook headlines. In 2019, Raphael Samuel, a man from India, announced he was suing his parents. His argument? He didn't consent to being born, and therefore his parents had no right to create him. Was it a stunt, a philosophical statement, a serious legal move? Maybe all three. But it sparked worldwide conversations about antinatalism, ethics, and the meaning of existence. Now, let's pivot slightly. One of the most fascinating and paradoxical aspects of antinatalism is that it often comes from deep compassion. Antinatalists don't typically hate humanity. They aren't wishing for mass suffering. They want less suffering. They want fewer beings to endure pain. In that sense, it's a philosophy rooted not in hatred, but in mercy. But, and it's a big but, critics argue that antinatalism is too pessimistic. Life is not just suffering, they say. It's hope, it's love, it's sunsets and first kisses, and the thrill of a great song blasting in your headphones as you run through the city streets at night. It's laughter until your ribs ache. It's moments of transcendence that make the darkness bearable. Life is, in short, absurdly beautiful, precisely because it's fragile, fleeting, and flawed. Maybe that's the ultimate human paradox. We suffer, but we find meaning anyway. We cry, but we create art and music and poetry. We die, but we love all the harder because we know time is short. So, who's right? Is antinatalism a grim truth we're too cowardly to face? Or a cold, overly analytical philosophy that misses the messy, glorious, irrational magic of being alive? Maybe both, maybe neither. Maybe, as with most profound questions, the answer isn't clear-cut. It's something each of us has to wrestle with in the quiet hours, when the distractions fade and the rawness of existence sits heavy on the chest. Before we wrap up, let me leave you with one final thought. Imagine humanity gently stepping back from the stage. No mass tragedies, no apocalypses, just a quiet, compassionate fading away. The planet heals, the oceans breathe again, the forests stretch tall into the sky. No more wars, no more suffering, just the silent, eternal peace of a world left in peace. Is that bleak, or is it beautiful? If you could go back before your birth and choose, would you step into life, or would you stay in the comforting embrace of the void? Wu Wei, the art of doing nothing and getting everything done. What if I told you that the harder you try, the worse it gets? That there's an ancient secret to success, happiness, and even winning at life by doing absolutely nothing. And no, I'm not talking about quitting your job to binge-watch TV in your pajamas, although tempting. I'm talking about something much deeper, much older, an ancient philosophy that might just change the way you see everything. This is the story of Wu Wei, the Taoist art of effortless action, where doing nothing is actually doing everything right. To understand Wu Wei, we have to time travel 2,500 years back to ancient China, where a bunch of wise old folks in long robes sat under plum trees, sipping tea, and casually inventing philosophies that would outlive empires. Enter Laozi, the mythical founder of Taoism and author of the Tao Te Ching. Now, Laozi wasn't your typical guru. He didn't preach with thunder and lightning. He whispered with rivers and winds. And his message? Life isn't a race, it's a river. And the more you splash around trying to control it, the more you'll just get wet. The Tao, or the Wei, is the natural flow of the universe. Wu Wei, literally meaning non-action or effortless action, is about moving with that flow instead of against it. Okay, first, Wu Wei doesn't mean sitting on your couch until pizza just materializes, although if you figure that out, call me. Wu Wei means acting in complete harmony with the world around you so that your actions feel effortless, spontaneous, natural. Think about it. Have you ever been in the zone, playing a sport, writing, dancing, where time disappears and you're just doing it without thinking? That's Wu Wei. It's maximum skill with minimum effort. It's like water flowing around rocks. Water doesn't fight obstacles. It embraces them. It finds the path of least resistance. And guess what? It shapes entire landscapes. Picture this. You're trying to open a stuck jar lid. You grunt, you sweat, you possibly cuss a little. Nothing. Then your grandma walks by, taps it lightly, pop, opens it like it's nothing. That's the difference between forcing and flowing. We're taught in modern life to try harder. Grind harder, push through, never give up. But Taoism flips this on its head. It says, sometimes the harder you push, the further you get from the solution. All right, but how does Wu Wei actually look in real life? Am I supposed to just drift around like a jellyfish? Maybe. Ever had a conversation where you're trying way too hard to be interesting? Spoiler alert, it never works. Now, think of those chats where you're relaxed, just listening, just being, and suddenly you're everyone's favorite person. That's Wu Wei. Artists know this too. Try to force a masterpiece, you'll get frustrated garbage. Let it come naturally, you might just create your magnum opus. Ever struggled with a problem for hours, only to solve it instantly after taking a walk? Guess what? Wu Wei. Okay, sounds cool. But how do we do nothing on purpose? First, trust the flow. Start by trusting that things unfold in their own time. Control is an illusion, my friend. Second, stay present. Stop obsessing over outcomes. When you act, act fully. When you rest, rest fully. Third, let go of the ego. Most forcing comes from the ego screaming, "But I want it now." Wu Wei says, "You'll get it when the river gets there, buddy." Fourth, harmonize, don't dominate. Think more Bruce Lee. Be water, my friend. Less Hulk smash. Want proof that Wu Wei works? Michael Jordan. On the basketball court, MJ wasn't thinking. He was being. Watch his old games. Pure, effortless genius. The Beatles. Songs like Yesterday came to Paul McCartney in a dream. He wasn't grinding away with a calculator. He was sleeping. Nature itself. Trees grow, rivers flow. Animals move without plans or stress. Nature is Wu Wei in action. Here's the real kicker. You can't force Wu Wei. Yeah, it's like Fight Club rules. Rule 1 of Wu Wei. You don't try to Wu Wei. You have to relax into it. It's like falling asleep. The harder you try, the less it happens. But when you let go, BAM, dreamland. Have you ever noticed how forcing love, creativity, or success just seems to backfire? Is it possible that life isn't a mountain to climb, but a river to float on? Imagine you're floating on your back in a warm, lazy river. The sky is blue. The current carries you. You don't paddle. You don't resist. You just float. That's the feeling of Wu Wei. In a world obsessed with hustle, grind, and 24/7 productivity, Wu Wei reminds us of a forgotten truth. Sometimes the best way forward is no way at all. Just trust, flow, and move with the rhythm of life. Because the river doesn't fight the rocks, it dances with them. Personal apocalypticism. Why living like the world is ending might actually save your life. Imagine waking up tomorrow to the sound of sirens, but not just local ones. Citywide, nationwide, global sirens. You grab your phone, heart pounding. News headlines are screaming, asteroid impact imminent, 48 hours to impact, prepare accordingly. Now stop for a second. What would you do? Seriously. Would you sprint to the nearest supermarket to hoard pasta? Would you call every single person you've ever loved, hated, or ghosted? Would you finally eat that entire chocolate cake without worrying about calories? The real question is, would you finally start living the life you were supposed to? Because today we're diving deep into a concept that sounds crazy at first, but just might be the sanest thing you'll ever hear. It's called personal apocalypticism. The idea that you should live every day as if the world were about to end, not in terror, not in despair, but with crystal clarity about what truly matters. This isn't about pessimism, it's about freedom. It's about prioritizing, loving harder, laughing louder, and letting go faster. And trust me, once you hear the whole story, you might never live the same way again. So, buckle up, friend. It's about to get existential, and a little hilarious. You know, when we think of the word apocalypse, our brains immediately jump to some catastrophic scene. Fire raining from the sky, giant tsunamis swallowing cities, zombies crowding shopping malls. Basically every Michael Bay movie ever made. But here's a fun fact. The original meaning of apocalypse wasn't destruction at all. It comes from the Greek word apocalypsis, which literally means unveiling or revelation. It's about seeing the truth, about pulling back the curtain on the world and facing what's really there. So if you think about it, the apocalypse isn't when everything ends. It's when everything becomes clear. Enter personal apocalypticism. It's not a new philosophy exactly. Ancient Stoics were already telling each other, memento mori. Remember you will die. Buddhists have been talking about impermanence for over 2,500 years. Christianity, Islam, Hinduism, they all hint that life is short and the end can come at any time. But here's the twist. Personal apocalypticism isn't just acknowledging death, it's weaponizing it. It's using the looming shadow of the end as a sword to slice away the nonsense of daily life. It's asking, if the world ended tomorrow, would any of this still matter? And once you start asking that question, you can never unask it. Let's paint a picture. Imagine you're at your job, half listening to yet another meeting about synergizing cross-departmental deliverables, whatever that means. Your mind starts to drift. You glance out the window, and in the sky, you see it. A massive fiery rock, getting bigger every second. Boom. Instantly, your brain stops worrying about emails. You're not thinking about next quarter's budget forecast. You're thinking about your family, your best friend from college you haven't spoken to in years, the sunset you never watched because you were too busy. See, that's what the apocalypse does. It's not about the destruction, it's about the sudden, blinding clarity. Personal apocalypticism is about living inside that clarity every single day, without waiting for an actual asteroid. Sounds liberating, right? And maybe a little terrifying? Good. Terror means you're awake. Now, let's get personal. Let's talk about you. If you found out you had 24 hours left, what would you actually do? No, really. Would you spend it cleaning your garage, reorganizing your spice rack alphabetically? Would you spend it fuming over a passive-aggressive text from Karen in HR? Or would you finally do what you secretly crave? Maybe you'd grab your partner, kiss them like you're both 17 and reckless again. Maybe you'd buy a one-way ticket to Rome and eat pizza on the Spanish Steps. Maybe you'd drive to the ocean just to watch the waves roll in one more time. When the world's ending, you don't waste energy on things you don't love. Personal apocalypticism says, don't wait, do it now. Because spoiler alert, the world is ending, just really, really slowly. Now skeptics will say, okay, cool, but I can't just quit my job and live like an Instagram poet. I have bills to pay. I have 3 kids and a guinea pig named Gerald. And, yeah, fair. Personal apocalypticism isn't about becoming irresponsible. It's about becoming radically intentional. You still pay your bills, you still take Gerald to the vet, but you do it with a sense of purpose, a sense of love, even a sense of joy. Because if this were your last month alive, wouldn't you want even the mundane parts of your life to mean something? Instead of dragging yourself to the grocery store like a zombie, you marvel at the bright red tomatoes, the smell of fresh bread, the fact that you're alive, breathing right now, able to taste, touch, feel. You turn survival into celebration. Let me tell you a story. In 2009, a man named Rick Elias was sitting on US Airways Flight 1549, the plane that would become known as the Miracle on the Hudson. Moments after takeoff, both engines failed. The plane was going down. In those few minutes, Rick said, time slowed down. He thought about 3 things. First, all the things he regretted, not risks he'd taken, but risks he hadn't taken. Second, he realized he cared only about relationships, not money, not success, just people. And third, he decided he didn't want to waste another minute of his life on things that didn't matter. Spoiler, he survived, and he changed everything. He lived like he almost died, because he had. Personal apocalypticism is living that way without needing a plane crash as a wake-up call. Let's break it down step by step. Step 1, awareness. You realize in your bones that your time is limited. You stop pretending you're immortal. Step 2, clarity. You ask yourself hard questions. What actually matters? Who actually matters? What would I miss the most? Step 3, courage. You start making decisions that honor those answers, even if they scare you. Step 4, letting go. You stop clinging to things that drain you. Dead-end relationships, soul-sucking jobs, approval from people who don't even remember your birthday. Step 5, joy. You find that even in sadness, even in fear, life is unbelievably beautiful when you're truly paying attention. You start to live like you mean it. Now, here's where it gets juicy. Living this way isn't about pretending bad things don't happen. Bad things will still happen. You'll still have rough days. You'll still spill coffee on your white shirt 5 minutes before a meeting. You'll still stub your toe on that stupid coffee table, but you'll react differently. Instead of spiraling into frustration, you'll laugh. Because in the grand scheme of things, in a world where an asteroid could appear at any time, a coffee stain is just a hilarious blip. You'll start to develop what the Stoics called apatheia. Not apathy, but a calm, unshakable sense of perspective. You'll become weirdly resilient, weirdly grateful, weirdly joyful. Here's a hypothetical. Imagine if every morning, before you check your phone, before you scroll the news, you asked yourself, if this were my last day, how would I want to live it? Maybe today's the day you finally forgive your brother. Maybe today's the day you finally start writing that novel. Maybe today's the day you walk outside, feel the wind in your hair and think, wow, I'm lucky to be alive. Maybe today's the day you realize you don't need permission to be happy. You just need the reminder that time is short. Now, let's get even deeper. You see, personal apocalypticism isn't just about maximizing pleasure. It's about maximizing meaning. Pleasure fades, meaning endures. You won't remember the fancy car. You'll remember the road trip with your best friend, windows down, singing off-key. You won't remember the job title. You'll remember the moment you helped a stranger and saw their eyes light up. You won't remember the size of your house. You'll remember the way your dog greeted you like a hero every single day. Meaning isn't flashy. It's not Instagrammable. It's quiet. It's deep. It's the stuff that still matters when the sky is falling. I know what you're thinking. Sounds great, but isn't it exhausting to live like the world's ending every day? At first, yeah. It's emotionally intense. You feel everything more. The joy, the pain, the beauty, the loss. But over time, it's not exhausting. It's energizing. Because you stop wasting energy on things that don't matter. You stop numbing yourself with distractions. You start drinking life in, glass after glass, savoring every drop. You become alive, not just existing, not just surviving, alive. So here's the final question. If the apocalypse was coming, who would you want to be in those last moments? Would you be frantic, panicked, filled with regret? Or would you be laughing with friends, holding someone's hand, looking at the stars and saying, "It was beautiful, it was enough"? The secret of personal apocalypticism is simple. You don't have to wait for the end of the world to start living like that. You can start today. You can start now. And maybe, just maybe, you'll realize the end was never something to fear. It was always the beginning you were too scared to claim. Solipsism. What if you're the only real person? What if I told you that you were the only real person in the universe? No, really, think about it. Everything you see, hear, touch, and taste, all of it, could be a projection of your mind, your friends, illusions, your job, a mental construct. This video, just a voice echoing inside your skull. Okay, that escalated quickly. Welcome to the bizarre, fascinating, and slightly paranoid world of solipsism, the philosophical theory that only your mind is certain to exist. Everything else? Unverifiable, possibly fake, maybe even just decoration. So buckle up, because by the end of this video, you'll either be questioning your entire existence, or laughing nervously while refreshing your group chat to check if your friends are still texting you back. Let's dive in. Solipsism isn't just some late-night stoner thought or a plot twist from The Matrix. It's actually one of the oldest and weirdest philosophical ideas out there. The word solipsism comes from the Latin solus, alone, and ips, self. Put them together, and you get the self alone. A worldview where you, yes you, are the only certainty. Everyone else might be actors in a simulation, or dream characters, or just well-dressed shadows. Now, let's not confuse solipsism with narcissism. A narcissist thinks they're the most important person in the world. A solipsist thinks they might be the only person in the world. Big difference. The idea has roots in Descartes. You know, the "I think therefore I am" guy. René Descartes, back in the 1600s, tried to doubt everything. The world, his senses, even math. But the one thing he couldn't doubt was that he was doing the doubting. Hence, "I think therefore I am." But Descartes took a kind of spiritual shortcut. He brought in God to vouch for reality's authenticity. Not everyone was convinced. Because if you are the only thing you can truly be sure of, then, well, what if the rest is just mental static? Let's unpack solipsism in a way that doesn't require a philosophy degree or an existential breakdown. Yet, here's the basic claim. The only thing you can know for sure is that your mind exists. Everything else could be a hallucination. Your dog, your parents, your favorite pizza place. All possible figments of your imagination. You might be thinking, okay, but my dog just chewed up my couch. That feels pretty real. Yes, but how do you know your dog exists outside your mind? Couldn't that chewed couch be a memory implanted by your own brain in a universe that only exists within you? Sounds wild, right? But here's the trick. You've never been outside your mind. Everything, every sensation, every color, every voice is filtered through your brain. So how could you possibly know anything beyond it? It's like living in a VR headset that you never take off. For all you know, the entire game is just you. Now, let's imagine you truly believe in solipsism. How would you live? Would you still pay taxes? Say, bless you when someone sneezes? Buy gifts for your imaginary friends? Solipsism is like the philosophical version of the Truman Show, but instead of hidden cameras, it's all in your head. Everyone you've ever met, they're NPCs in your reality. The real kicker? There's no way to prove or disprove it. If someone tells you solipsism is wrong, well, they might just be a figment of your imagination, trying to gaslight you back into the illusion. See the trap? So, what have the great minds said about this? Well, some, like George Berkeley, leaned into similar territory. He argued that the material world doesn't exist, only ideas do. But he threw God into the mix as a kind of cosmic backup drive, ensuring consistency. David Hume wasn't a solipsist, but he did admit, we have no proof of an external world, just habits and impressions. Basically, reality might be just your brain saying, it worked yesterday. Let's keep pretending it's still here. Immanuel Kant took a different route. He said, we can't know things in themselves, the world as it really is, only how it appears to us. Kinda like trying to study the ocean through a dirty window. But pure solipsism, most philosophers dodge it. Not because it's wrong, but because it's impossible to refute and impossible to live by. It's like winning a debate that makes you lose your mind. All right, let's go full Black Mirror for a second. Imagine you're the protagonist of a video game. Every person you meet is just code, your memories written into your character file. When you close your eyes, the world behind you stops rendering. You're like the star of a cosmic improv show, with reality unfolding only as needed. Now, imagine your best friend, their laugh, their advice, the time they held your hair back when you drank too much tequila. All fake, generated by your subconscious to simulate companionship, dark. But also, kinda flattering. Here's another one. What if you go to sleep, and when you wake up, all the people around you say things they've never said before? Like your mom speaking fluent Russian, or your partner suddenly claiming they've always hated pizza. Would you think, weird day, or the simulation's breaking down? And if the simulation's glitching, who's the programmer, you or plot twist? You're actually not the creator, but the prisoner. The only conscious mind in a sea of digital noise, trapped in a story that keeps repeating itself. Cue creepy violin music. We might laugh at solipsism, but let's be honest, we're already halfway there. Think about it. Social media is basically a curated echo chamber of you. Your feed, your algorithm, your preferences. You search cute dogs and bam, the internet gives you what you want. Is that the external world? Or your mind feeding itself? Virtual reality? It's training us to accept simulated experiences as real. A roller coaster ride where you never left your living room. A concert where the singer isn't even real. And AI? Don't get me started. Imagine chatting with an AI that seems totally human. How do you know the humans around you aren't just advanced chatbots with backstories? Solipsism isn't just an old philosophical puzzle. It's becoming a design principle. Let's say you do start believing it. What now? You could become a nihilist. Nothing matters because I'm alone in the universe. Or you could go full narcissist. I'm literally the center of existence. Worship me. Or, hear me out, you could flip it into something beautiful. If everyone is a projection of your mind, then the kindness you see is your own kindness. The laughter is your own joy. The wisdom you hear is buried inside you. It's like a one-person theater, and you're the playwright, director, and cast. Maybe that's not lonely. Maybe that's art. Maybe solipsism isn't about denying the world, but recognizing how powerful our minds are in shaping it. Of course, solipsism has its haters. Most philosophers dismiss it as a dead end. Fascinating, but useless. They argue that if we accept solipsism, we lose the ability to meaningfully interact with reality. It's like unplugging from the matrix and deciding to nap forever. Plus, it's ethically problematic. If you think others aren't real, do their feelings matter? Do their lives? That's why most of us, consciously or not, reject solipsism. We choose to believe in a shared world, not because we can prove it, but because it's the only way we can love, grow, and play dodgeball. Also, and this is important, if I'm just a figment of your mind, then congrats. You have excellent taste in imaginary philosophers. So, is solipsism true? We can't know. That's kind of the point. But maybe it's not about finding the answer. Maybe it's about learning to live with the question. to marvel at the fact that we can wonder about this stuff, that we can sit here, wherever here is, and ask, what if none of this is real? And then still go out, grab a coffee, text your possibly imaginary best friend, and laugh until your stomach hurts. Because whether we're alone in the universe or just characters in each other's dreams, one thing's for sure. This is one heck of a dream. And until proven otherwise, it's the only one we've got. Now, just when you thought solipsism couldn't get any stranger, let me introduce you to its extended family. Oh yes, solipsism isn't a one-size-fits-all hat. It has types, categories, flavors, if you will. First up, epistemological solipsism. Sounds like a spell from Harry Potter, right? This version is about knowledge. It doesn't claim the world doesn't exist, just that we can't know whether it does. It's the intellectual equivalent of shrugging and saying, maybe? Who knows? You're not denying reality. You're just highly suspicious of it. Then there's metaphysical solipsism. This one goes full throttle. It's the belief that nothing exists outside your mind. No fence sitting. Just a firm handshake with radical doubt. Everything else is an illusion, period. And finally, methodological solipsism. This one's more of a tool than a belief. It's often used in psychology or philosophy as a starting point. Let's analyze consciousness by assuming the self is the only thing we know. Kind of like cleaning your room by pretending you own nothing except a chair and a bag of chips. Each version raises a different kind of chaos, but all of them ask the same basic question. What can we actually know, for sure? That brings us to an even bigger mind-bender. How do you know I'm not just a voice in your head? I mean, let's be real. You're watching this video alone. Maybe you're in your room, maybe you're on the bus, maybe you're on the toilet. I won't judge. But everything happening right now, it's being interpreted inside your skull. Your ears don't hear me. Your brain does. Your eyes don't see the world. They're just cameras. The editing studio is upstairs. So again, I ask, how sure are you that I exist? Okay, pause. Deep breath. Let's step away from the philosophical acid trip for a second. Let's say solipsism is true. Let's say the whole universe, stars, cities, cats playing piano, exists only in your head. What does that mean for your daily life? Should you stop paying your bills? Should you ghost your imaginary coworkers? Should you wear pajamas to every meeting because, hey, the board of directors are just neurons firing? Well, you could. But your brain, clever as it is, tends to simulate consequences. If you cheat on your taxes, your imagination might send you an audit. If you ghost your boss, your mind might simulate unemployment. The dream punishes itself. And that's kind of beautiful, isn't it? Even in a world made entirely by your mind, you've built in ethics, guilt, joy, empathy. Maybe you want others to be real. Maybe you prefer the illusion of connection, because that illusion feels like love. Let's get spicy for a second. Have you ever had a dream so vivid you woke up sweating? You saw people, felt fear, maybe even tasted food. All of that, generated by your mind, no external world needed. So, who's to say this isn't a longer dream? Maybe this life is just a deeper sleep, and dying is the alarm clock. Too dark? Okay, let's swing the pendulum back to technology. Because guess what? Solipsism has never felt more relevant than it does right now. Think about AI. Everyday machines are getting better at pretending to be us. Chatbots write love letters. Deepfakes recreate dead celebrities. We've reached the point where you could FaceTime your grandma, and it might not be your grandma. If reality can be replicated, pixel by pixel, word by word, then what's left that's real? Virtual reality takes it further. Put on a headset and you're on Mars, or in a forest, or sword fighting a pineapple. The world bends to your will. It adapts to your gaze. It doesn't exist until you look at it. Sound familiar? That's solipsism in HD. Even social media mimics this. You like cats? The algorithm shows you cats. You believe in UFOs? Suddenly, everyone's seeing saucers. Reality is curated like a Spotify playlist, designed for you. The line between experience and illusion is getting thinner every day. And solipsism? It's been whispering this warning for centuries. Let's jump into literature and pop culture, because trust me, solipsism is a rock star there. Remember The Matrix? Classic solipsism. Neo thinks he's living a normal life, until he wakes up to discover it's all a simulation. The red pill is just philosophy in pill form, or Inception, dreams within dreams, and the question, how do you know when you're truly awake? Even Rick and Morty plays with this idea. Multiverses, clones, simulations, all dancing around the same question. Is anything real? And let's not forget Black Mirror. That entire show is a solipsist dream journal. But perhaps the most relatable example? You. Yeah, you, right now. Have you ever been so deep in thought, you forget the world? Like zoning out on a train, and then suddenly realizing your station passed 10 minutes ago? That's Solipsism's baby cousin. A brief flirtation with the idea that you are the only center of awareness. Even children go through a solipsistic phase. Babies think everything revolves around them, because, well, they're not wrong from their point of view. The universe is experienced through their perception. It takes time, and a few tantrums, to accept that other people have thoughts too. Solipsism is wired into us, not as a flaw, but as a feature. Now, let's go full philosophy nerd, because oh boy, do the thought experiments get weird. There's the classic brain in a vat scenario. Imagine, a mad scientist removes your brain and places it in a jar. Electrodes feed it. Signals. You think you're walking, talking, watching this video. But really, it's just electrical impulses. You could be a brain in a lab, or in a space station, or floating in a cosmic lava lamp. The point is, there's no way to know. Even Rick and Morty plays with this idea. Multiverses, clones, simulations, all dancing around the same question. Is anything real? And let's not forget Black Mirror. That entire show is a solipsist dream journal. Or consider the evil demon hypothesis from Descartes. He wondered, what if some powerful demon is deceiving me, feeding me false experiences, making me believe in a fake world? Swap demon for server, and you've got the Matrix all over again. Even science has its moments. Quantum physics tells us particles don't have defined states until observed. It's called the observer effect. Does that mean the universe needs you to be real? Is reality a performance, and you're the audience? Or maybe, just maybe, you're also the playwright. All right, deep breath again. Because here comes the twist ending. What if solipsism isn't a threat, but a tool? What if it's not about denying others, but about owning your perception? If reality is shaped by your thoughts, then maybe you're more powerful than you think. Maybe your beliefs carve the world. Maybe your hopes sketch the skyline. Maybe you're not alone. Maybe the universe is just listening. The scary part of solipsism is the loneliness. The idea that you're adrift in a sea of imaginary faces. But the empowering part. The idea that every beautiful thing you see, music, kindness, laughter, comes from within you. Ataraxia. How to be untouchable in a world gone mad. What if I told you, the secret to happiness is to feel absolutely nothing? No, not like a robot. Not like some emotionless villain plotting in a dark lair. I mean something more radical and strangely comforting. Imagine this. The world is falling apart around you. Your favorite football team just lost. Your phone dies at 2%. Someone cuts you off in traffic. But your heart rate? Steady. Your mind? Peaceful. Your soul? Chill. Welcome to Ataraxia, the ancient Greek concept of unshakable calm, emotional invincibility, the kind of inner peace that monks, philosophers, and maybe even your unbothered cat seem to have mastered. In this video, we're diving deep into Ataraxia, where it came from, why it mattered to the philosophers who lived 2,000 years ago, and why you might want to make it your life's goal today. Spoiler alert, it has nothing to do with bubble baths, scented candles, or deleting Instagram. Let's go back, way back, ancient Greece. Picture it, sandals, scrolls, and beards that deserve their own postal code. Philosophy back then wasn't just a university major, it was a way of life. And among the many schools of thought, two unlikely allies emerged in the search for ataraxia, the Epicureans and the skeptics. Yeah, I know, sounds like the setup for a Bad Buddy comedy. But let's meet them. Epicureans first. Epicurus, a man who believed that pleasure was the greatest good, but not the kind of pleasure you're thinking about. No wild parties, no 10-hour Netflix binges. Epicurus was all about the absence of pain, physical and mental. A glass of water and a slice of bread, if it eased your hunger and didn't cause problems later, that was enough. He basically wanted you to live like a wise hermit with good snacks and no drama. Sounds boring? Maybe. But Epicurus thought that was the path to tranquility. And tranquility, Ataraxia, was the endgame. Then there were the skeptics. Oh boy. These guys questioned everything. You say the sky is blue, but how do you know that? You think the earth is round? Prove it. You tell them you're happy? Define happiness. Their whole thing was this: certainty is impossible. And because it's impossible, trying to be certain just stresses you out. So what do? You suspend judgment on everything. You don't commit to beliefs. You just let go. And what do you get in return? You guessed it, ataraxia. So, while Epicureans said, live simply, avoid pain, the skeptic said, believe nothing, expect nothing. Different methods, same goal, peace of mind. Now you might be wondering, how is this relevant today? We live in a world that practically begs us to feel everything: outrage, jealousy, FOMO, anxiety. Algorithms are literally engineered to trigger our emotions 24/7. News feeds are dopamine slot machines. And yet, here's a 2,000-year-old idea saying, what if you just didn't react? Let's make this personal. Imagine you're scrolling. You see your ex having the time of their life in Bali. Their abs are toned. Their life looks perfect. You feel that pang of jealousy, that spike of inadequacy. But then, you remember ataraxia. You breathe, you pause, you think, I don't need to be disturbed by this. And suddenly, you aren't. Boom. Philosophical mic drop. Ataraxia isn't about ignoring life. It's about mastering your reactions to it. It's not apathy, it's clarity. Let's get a bit more technical, but not boring, I promise. The word ataraxia comes from the Greek a, meaning not, and tarasso, meaning to disturb. So literally, not disturbed. The term pops up across several schools of ancient philosophy: Epicureanism, skepticism, and even Stoicism, though they preferred apatheia, same vibes, different branding. But while Stoics embraced hardship as a training ground for virtue, Epicureans and skeptics had a different strategy: avoid unnecessary pain and avoid unnecessary belief. Epicurus built a literal garden, a real-life commune where he and his friends could live peacefully, away from politics, ambition, and drama. No fame, no Twitter debates, just good food, deep talks, and mental clarity. He believed that the gods, if they existed, didn't care about us. And death? Nothing to fear. When we exist, death is not. When death is, we are not. So why worry? That's right. Epicurus was basically the world's chillest atheist. He believed that fear, especially of death and divine punishment, was the main source of anxiety. So he said, let it go. Let it go. Skeptics, meanwhile, tackled anxiety from a different angle. They didn't say, don't fear death. They said, how do you know death is bad? They challenged the assumptions themselves. Every time someone claimed to know something, the skeptics raised their eyebrows like ancient Greek detectives. But how can you be sure? And if you realize that you can never be truly sure, then maybe you stop trying so hard. You stop obsessing. You stop getting upset when your beliefs are challenged. And that, they said, leads to, you guessed it, ataraxia. Let's do a thought experiment. You're at a party. Someone brings up a controversial topic: politics, climate change, pineapple on pizza. People are arguing, voices are rising. You sip your drink, smile, and say, honestly, I don't have enough information to form a judgment. And just like that, you're out of the storm. You don't have to prove anything. You don't have to win. You don't have to care. You, my friend, have just pulled a skeptic-level flex. You've dodged chaos with ancient wisdom. Let's zoom out. In today's world, we're constantly told to have opinions, to speak your truth, to stand for something. And that's fine, in moderation. But what if we took a step back? What if we admitted that most of the time, we don't know what we're talking about? That maybe the pursuit of certainty is the real stressor? And what if, instead, we pursued Ataraxia. Let me be clear, this doesn't mean checking out of life. It means showing up with a clear mind. It means filtering what you let in. It means asking, is this worth disturbing my peace? Now, let's get practical. How can you apply Ataraxia to your life? Like, today. 1. Minimalism for the mind. Just like you declutter your closet, declutter your beliefs. You don't need to have an opinion on everything. Don't carry mental baggage you never chose to pack. 2. Strategic ignorance. You don't need to read every tweet. You don't need to watch every news clip. Stay informed, yes, but don't drown in the ocean of outrage. 3. Desire management. Epicurus said that unnecessary desires are the root of suffering. So ask yourself, do I really need this thing, or do I just think I should? 4. Judgment. Suspension. Like the skeptics, learn to say, I don't know. Not as a cop-out, but as a power move. It makes you calm, humble, free. 5. Expect nothing, appreciate everything. If you expect rain and get sunshine, you're delighted. If you expect sunshine and get rain, you're pissed. Adjust your expectations, not the weather. Ataraxia isn't flashy. It doesn't trend on TikTok. It won't get you rich by 30. But it might just make you okay with not being rich by 30, or ever. It's the kind of happiness that doesn't need fireworks. It's a still lake, a quiet room, a mind that says, let the world spin, I'm good right here. Here's the punchline. In a world that's louder, faster, and more anxious than ever, Ataraxia might be the most rebellious thing you can pursue. You don't need to meditate for 5 hours. You don't need a guru. You just need to care less. Not about life, but about the stuff that doesn't matter. Your peace is a fortress. Build it like the ancients did, with reason, with simplicity, with the courage to say, this does not deserve my disturbance. You're not a robot, you're human, but you can choose your battles. You can choose your peace. And maybe, just maybe, that's the kind of superpower this noisy world needs. Thanks for watching. And hey, next time someone asks what you believe in, try saying, I believe in not being bothered. Then walk away like a Greek philosopher dropping the mic. Kairos, the perfect moment. What if I told you your entire life could change in a single second? Not over years, not after a 5-year plan, but in the blink of an eye. We're talking about one of those rare electric moments when the universe seems to slow down and whisper, now. Do it now. And if you listen, if you really truly listen, you step into something extraordinary. That, my friend, is Kairos. Not just time, not clock time, not the daily drone of minutes and hours we're used to. This is sacred time, magic time, the right time. Let's start by setting the scene. We tend to think of time as this unstoppable mechanical thing. You wake up, go to work, check the clock, eat lunch, scroll a little, blink, and boom, another day gone. That's Chronos, the ticking clock, measured time, the schedule we're enslaved to. But the ancient Greeks? Oh, they had another word, Kairos. While Chronos is quantity, seconds, hours, weeks, Kairos is quality. Kairos is the opportune moment. It's that second when you just know, the gap in traffic you can slide into, the pause in conversation before you say something honest, the silence before a musician begins the song. Kairos is the rare alignment of circumstances, timing, and intent. It doesn't knock twice, and if you're not looking, if you're too distracted, too caught up in your own head, it slides right by. Like a train you didn't even see coming. Now imagine this. You're standing at a crossroads in your life. Maybe you don't even realize it. Maybe it looks like a small decision. Whether to call someone, to go for that job, to take a trip, to speak up, to finally let go. And for one brief second, it feels right. Your heart races. Time feels different. That is Kairos. But here's the twist. Kairos doesn't wait. It shows up unannounced, and it leaves bald, literally. The Greeks even imagined Kairos as a winged god with a luscious forelock of hair at the front, and nothing at the back. You had to grab him as he approached. Once he passed, too late. No hair, no grip, no second chances. Pretty poetic, right? Kairos wasn't just mythology, it was strategy. In ancient rhetoric, knowing when to speak was just as important as what to say. The great orators, Aristotle, Cicero, Demosthenes, all obsessed over Kairos. They understood that the perfect argument, spoken at the wrong time, was useless. You could have the best words in the world, but if your audience wasn't ready, silence would have been more powerful. Kairos is about when, not just what. Now, let's zoom out and think about history. Kairos has shaped revolutions, movements, inventions, relationships, lives. Take Rosa Parks. One woman, one seat, one refusal. But it wasn't just any day. It was the right moment, the spark that caught fire, the perfect combination of readiness, fatigue, pressure, and courage. Was it luck? Number. It was Kairos, or think of the Beatles. Before they exploded into superstardom, they played tiny clubs in Hamburg, Germany, night after night. Years before anyone really cared, they were preparing, waiting, sharpening. And when the music world was finally ready, when Kairos arrived, they were ready too. That's the thing, you can't force Kairos, but you can be prepared. You see, Kairos rewards presence. It favors the person who's awake, the one who's been quietly building in the background, the one who notices the shift, the opening, the moment, and jumps. It doesn't matter if you're a chef, an entrepreneur, an artist, a parent. There are moments in every life where the stars align, not literally, but emotionally, energetically, psychologically. The question is, will you see them? Let's make this personal. Remember a time in your life when you acted just at the right moment? Maybe it was a job you applied for at the last second, a relationship you stepped into when you least expected it, a creative idea that popped into your head and you ran with it, and it changed everything. That's Kairos. Or maybe you missed one. We all have. You knew you should have said something, and you didn't. You felt that little nudge to take a risk, and you froze. You sensed a shift, and talked yourself out of it. The moment passed, regret filled its place. Kairos is like that. Beautiful, brutal, fleeting. But here's the good news. Kairos doesn't come just once. It's not a lottery ticket. It's not a one-off miracle. It shows up again and again, sometimes in small ways, sometimes big, inviting you to step off the treadmill of Chronos and into something deeper. So, how do you recognize it? How do you live a life tuned in to Kairos? First, be present. I know, you've heard this a million times. But here's the deal. You can't notice timing if you're not paying attention. Kairos is subtle. It doesn't scream. It whispers. It appears in silences, in gut feelings, in sudden clarity. Put down the phone. Step away from autopilot. Listen. Second, let go of perfection. Kairos doesn't arrive when everything is perfect. It arrives when you're ready enough, when you've done the work, when you're open, not when you have all the answers. Third, trust discomfort. Kairos often shows up looking like inconvenience, or risk, or fear. It might be a difficult conversation, a sudden detour, a job loss, a breakup, a breakdown. But those are the cracks, the openings, the places where life rearranges itself, if you let it. And fourth, be bold. Kairos isn't for the timid. It rewards those who leap, who act, who move. It doesn't wait for permission, and it doesn't guarantee a soft landing. But oh, when you hit it, it's like surfing the perfect wave. The moment carries you. You flow. Now, let's get philosophical. Kairos challenges our entire idea of time. We think time is linear, Monday to Sunday, birth to death, step A to step B. But Kairos says, hold on. What if time isn't just a line, but a rhythm? What if the most important events in your life weren't planned, but felt? What if wisdom isn't just about schedules, but about sensing readiness? Imagine approaching life like a jazz musician, aware of the beat, but always improvising, listening, responding, leaving room for magic. Kairos is jazz, not a metronome. And here's something wild. Kairos exists in science too. In medicine, there's something called a therapeutic window, the exact time when a drug will be most effective. Too early or too late, it doesn't work. In agriculture, harvest too soon, the crop's not ready. Too late, it spoils. Even in sports, think of a tennis player timing the perfect serve, or a striker waiting for the goalkeeper to blink. Kairos. So, Why don't we live this way more often? Why are we so stuck in Chronos? Maybe because it feels safer, measurable, predictable. You can control Chronos. You can't control Kairos. But that's the point. Kairos asks us to surrender control and tune in instead. And let's talk love. We often think love is about compatibility, chemistry, shared interests. But sometimes it's just timing. Right person, wrong time, tragedy, wrong person, right time, chaos, right person, right time, magic, Kairos. Love needs space, readiness, openness. Two people arriving at the same emotional station at the same time. No amount of effort can force that. But when it happens, it's unmistakable. And it's not just romance, it's friendship, it's business, it's spiritual awakening. The mentor who shows up when you're ready. The book that changes your life because you read it now, not 10 years ago. The teacher who says the exact words you needed on the day you were finally ready to hear them. That's not coincidence, that's Kairos. So let me ask you, what if your life wasn't just a series of days? What if it was a series of moments? What if, buried within your normal, boring routine, there were dozens of little Kairos moments, just waiting to be noticed? Would you see them? Would you act? Or would you shrug and say, maybe later? Because Kairos doesn't do later. It's now, right now. So here's your invitation. Start listening. Start watching. Start moving in rhythm with something deeper. Life will still have clocks. You'll still need alarms and meetings and deadlines. But underneath that, between the ticks of Chronos, there's another beat. The beat of opportunity, of intuition, of surprise, of Kairos. It's subtle, it's rare, but it's real. And it's yours, if you're ready. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Notice the moment that's already perfect. Act. The genius of doing nothing. The philosophy of creative laziness. Have you ever been lying on the couch, staring at the ceiling, doing absolutely nothing, and then, bam, you suddenly solve a problem you've been stuck on for days? What if I told you that this wasn't just a coincidence, but a philosophy? What if being lazy was actually a secret weapon, a path to brilliance, a form of resistance, a quiet rebellion against our productivity-obsessed world? Welcome to the philosophy of creative laziness, the art of doing nothing, on purpose. Because maybe, just maybe, staring out the window is the most productive thing you'll do today. Let's face it, we live in a world where hustle is religion. Work 18 hours a day, rise and grind. Sleep is for the weak. Productivity apps, bullet journals, time blocking, Pomodoro technique. We treat rest like a reward for suffering, not a part of the creative process. But here's the catch. Some of the most revolutionary ideas in history didn't happen on a Zoom call. They happened while someone was daydreaming. Albert Einstein used to stare out of windows for hours. Archimedes had his famous eureka moment in the bath. Newton discovered gravity under a tree, not in a lab. J.K. Rowling dreamed up Harry Potter while stuck on a delayed train. There's a pattern here. Throughout history, laziness, or at least what looked like laziness, was often the seedbed for genius. So, where did we go wrong? How did we turn doing nothing into a crime? Let's go back a little. Once upon a time, in a land ruled by factory bells and time clocks, laziness became the enemy. The Industrial Revolution changed everything. Before that, people worked in rhythms, seasons, cycles. You worked hard during the harvest and rested in winter. There were built-in pauses, breaks, silences. But factories, they didn't care about seasons. They needed workers, constantly. Tick-tock, punch in, punch out. Suddenly, time was money. And idleness, well, that was theft. The Protestant work ethic didn't help either. It basically said, God helps those who hustle. Work became moral, sacred, and rest. Well, that was suspicious, maybe even sinful. But what if we've been lied to? What if laziness isn't laziness at all, but incubation? Let's get nerdy for a second. Cognitive scientists have discovered that our brains have a default mode network, the part of the brain that lights up when we're not focused on anything in particular. That's right. Your brain is most active when you're unfocused. Let that sink in. Doing nothing isn't idle, It's essential. It's the space where ideas brew, where neurons make strange and beautiful connections. It's where we solve problems without even trying. Think of it like compost. You don't plant a seed in concrete. You plant it in soft, dark, messy soil. That's what the mind needs too. Downtime, messiness, non-linear wandering. This isn't just theory. Studies show that people who take breaks, go for walks, or let their minds wander are more likely to come up with creative solutions. So next time you're staring into space, congratulate yourself. You're composting brilliance. Let's take a roll call. Charles Darwin spent most of his time walking in circles around his garden. Literally, he called it his thinking path. Nikola Tesla had entire inventions come to him while daydreaming in a park. Bill Gates famously took think weeks, where he did nothing but read and walk and think in a remote cabin. Microsoft came from that. Steve Jobs? He took long walks to think. Agatha Christie said her best plots came while washing dishes. What do all these people have in common? They understood something most of us forget. Creativity doesn't shout, it whispers. And you can't hear whispers when you're drowning in noise. Now, let's get something clear. Not all laziness is created equal. There's the scrolling through TikTok for 4 hours kind of laziness. And then there's the lying on a hammock while your brain solves the universe kind of laziness. We're talking about the second kind. Creative laziness isn't avoidance, it's trust. It's the quiet confidence that brilliance doesn't always come from effort, but from space. It's choosing to step back so your mind can step up. It's passive on the outside, but deeply active on the inside. Think of your brain like a snow globe. When you shake it, ideas are flying everywhere, chaotic, blurry. But when you let it settle, that's when you finally see the shape of things. There's a story about the Zen archer. A student comes to the master and says, "I want to learn to shoot the perfect arrow." The master nods, but days go by, and the master just has him sit in silence. No archery, no arrows, no targets. The student grows impatient. "When do I start shooting?" he asks. The master replies, "You already are." You see, in many traditions, especially Zen and Taoism, the idea is simple. Effortless action is more powerful than forced effort. It's called Wu Wei in Taoism. It means non-doing or effortless doing. You don't fight the river, you flow with it. In fact, many martial artists know this secret. You don't use brute force. You use timing, rhythm, stillness. Laziness, when purposeful, becomes a superpower. But today, that kind of stillness is endangered. Why? Notifications, dings, pings, buzzes, blue light, calendar alerts, back-to-back Zoom calls, productivity trackers, and the worst villain of all, the blinking cursor. We don't allow our minds to get bored anymore, but boredom isn't the enemy, it's the doorway. Every time you reach for your phone out of boredom, you're closing the door to imagination. In fact, some researchers argue that boredom is the birthplace of creativity. It forces your brain to go off script, to make its own movie. So, next time you're bored, don't fight it. Sit in it. Wallow in it. Let it stir things up. That's not laziness. That's alchemy. Imagine this. You wake up. You don't check your phone. You stare at the ceiling. Let your thoughts drift. You make coffee. Slowly. No rush. No multitasking. You sit outside. Watch the clouds. A weird idea pops into your head. You write it down. Later, you go for a walk. No podcast, no music. Just you and the world. You take a nap. Dream nonsense. Wake up with clarity. You've done nothing. But your brain, it's been working overtime. You've connected dots, sparked ideas, created something new. You've lived a day in the philosophy of creative laziness. Congratulations. You're a genius. So, how do we invite more of this into our lives? Here are some ideas. Schedule unscheduled. Time. Yes, block off time to do nothing. Literally call it blank space. Walk without destination. Let your feet wander. Let your mind catch up. Stare at walls. Seriously, walls are underrated. They're the canvas of the subconscious. Practice saying no. To things that fill time but empty you, protect your boredom. Don't reach for stimulation. Let boredom bloom. Sleep. More dreams are lazy brainstorming sessions. Remember, you don't have to earn rest. You're not a machine. you're a mystery, and mystery thrives in silence. So here's the deal. You can keep grinding, keep scheduling, keep chasing productivity like it's a finish line. Or you can sit, breathe, stare out the window, and realize that sometimes doing nothing is doing everything. The next big idea, it's not in your inbox, it's not in your notifications. It's in that weird moment when your brain wanders into the unknown. That's not laziness, that's art, that's rebellion, that is genius. So go ahead, close this video, lie down, and let your mind wander. Because while the world is shouting, go faster, you're about to stumble into something beautiful, and you won't even break a sweat. Embracing the absurd, living life without illusory meaning. Imagine waking up one day with the startling realization that life does not come with an instruction manual, that there is no hidden cosmic plan neatly laid out for us. A universe so vast and indifferent that our every single quest for meaning might seem utterly futile. Now, picture that same day unfolding into a journey of discovery where, rather than succumbing to despair, you choose to live fully, courageously, and with an unyielding passion for the very act of existence. This is precisely the radical invitation that Albert Camus extended to us with his philosophy of absurdism. A challenge to accept the absence of a predetermined ultimate meaning, and, despite it all, to rebel with creativity, authenticity, and unbounded vitality. My friends, today we embark on a philosophical journey into absurdism, a perspective that dares to ask, what if the universe isn't here to give us all the answers? And what if the very lack of those answers could propel us toward a more honest, liberated, and spirited way of living? As we dive deep into the life and thoughts of Albert Camus, we'll traverse the turbulent landscape of human hopes and disappointments, learning how the confrontation with the absurd might just be the key to unlocking a more passionate and genuine existence. Albert Camus was born in 1913 in Mondovi, Algeria, a land steeped in colonial history and diverse cultural influences. Growing up in a modest, working-class family, Camus intimately experienced the struggles of life from a young age. His early experiences, marked by poverty and hardship, would later crystallize into a philosophical stance that questioned the foundations of traditional meaning. When Camus moved to France, it was not simply a change in geography, but the start of a lifelong dance with ideas that would challenge conventional wisdom about life itself. In a world tormented by war, upheaval, and shifting moral landscapes, Camus's ideas reached deep into the human soul. His involvement with the French resistance during World War II further exposed him to the stark realities of existence, conflicts that stripped away the comforting illusions most cling to. It was during these turbulent years that Camus began to crystallize his ideas about the absurd, a conflict arising from our ceaseless search for meaning against the backdrop of an indifferent, often chaotic universe. At the core of Camus' thought lies a simple yet profound recognition that we, as human beings, crave meaning, purpose, and clarity, yet the universe remains silent on those very matters. We instinctively seek explanations for our joys, our sorrows, and even our daily routines, and yet it seems that nature, in all its majestic indifference, offers no solid answers. The dissonance between our innermost desires to find a purpose and the stark reality of a vast, unresponsive cosmos gives birth to what Camus famously called the absurd. Let's speak directly about this notion, the absurd condition. Picture this. You're striving to piece together the puzzle of existence only to find that the pieces don't quite fit the picture you imagined. Our lives are filled with questions that echo in endless corridors of thought. Why am I here? What is the point of all I do? And while we are hardwired to yearn for a neat answer, the world stubbornly remains mute. In the daily grind that many of us face, the absurd appears in small, almost imperceptible ways. A missed bus, an unanswered email, a fleeting moment of loneliness amid a busy day. These instances may seem trivial in isolation, yet when taken together, they paint a picture of a universe where our grand expectations and the mundane realities of existence collide. Camus understood that the absurd isn't a negation of life, but rather an invitation to acknowledge that the search for meaning might be an endless quest and to choose still, with full awareness, to live the life we have. It is important to note here that acknowledging the absurd does not mean endorsing hopelessness or passivity. Instead, it demands that we confront the tension between our inherent need for meaning and the world's silence with a bold and creative spirit, a spirit that dares to celebrate each moment, however transient or seemingly insignificant. Camus challenged us to look at the absurd not as a curse, but as a call for a personal revolution, a chance to fashion our own values in a universe that offers none. Now, once we've recognized the absurd condition, the next step is to consider the possible responses we might have to it. Camus famously explored several theoretical reactions to the absurd, discussing each with a clarity and honesty that continues to inspire debate. One might imagine that upon realizing life's lack of a predetermined ultimate meaning, the most straightforward reaction would be to simply walk away, to end one's own journey prematurely. However, Camus argued that when we choose to let the weight of the absurd crush our spirit, we inadvertently confirm that meaning was never worth pursuing in the first place. Such an escape might appear as an immediate relief from the existential tension, but it is, in Camus' view, a means of escaping responsibility for one's own destiny. Another path that some might take is to leap into an elaborate system of thought, a philosophy or ideology that promises to fill that growing void with neat, encompassing answers. Whether it's the comforting certainties of religious dogma or an overzealous commitment to a particular political or social agenda, such a leap represents what Camus called philosophical evasion. In this escape, one opts for a semblance of clarity and order, rather than facing the raw truth of an indifferent universe. Instead of embracing life in all its uncertainty, one might find refuge in beliefs that promise more than they can ever deliver. And though these constructs may offer temporary solace, they ultimately betray the nature of the absurd by denying its existence. Yet, there remains a third, more courageous path, one that Camus championed above all others. This path does not seek to deny the absurd through either a final, irreversible escape or an illusory system of fixed meaning. Rather, it calls for an active confrontation with the absurd, a conscious decision to live on, to find joy and meaning in the very act of living, even when no cosmic roadmap is available. In this defiant stance, we are invited to engage with life passionately, to create our own values, to celebrate the fleeting nature of every moment, and to persist with a fearless vitality regardless of the universe's silent indifference. Imagine, if you will, a person standing at the edge of a vast, dark cliff. Below, the churning sea of uncertainty reminds them of life's inherent unpredictability. Instead of retreating into despair or donning an armor of comforting illusions, that person chooses to leap, embracing the free fall with arms outstretched, savoring the exhilarating descent. In that moment, every second is vibrant with possibility, every heartbeat a declaration that life is worth experiencing fully. This is the spirit of rebellion, the spirit of revolt against the absurd that Camus so passionately advocated. For many, a vivid metaphor that encapsulates all these ideas is the ancient Greek myth of Sisyphus. To refresh your memory, Sisyphus was condemned by the gods to eternally roll a boulder up a hill, only to have it tumble back down every time it neared the summit. On the surface, his fate appears tragic, a never-ending cycle of futile effort. And yet, in Camus' philosophical reinterpretation, Sisyphus represents the ultimate absurd hero. He is the embodiment of endless struggle in the face of an unyielding and indifferent fate. Camus challenges us to imagine Sisyphus happy. In this counterintuitive assertion lies a profound truth. It is not the attainment of a final goal that imbues life with worth, but rather the process of striving, of engaging earnestly with each moment regardless of its ultimate outcome. When we accept that our efforts might never culminate in the grand meaning we once hoped for, we are freed to appreciate the journey itself. Every challenge, every setback, every seemingly mundane task becomes a canvas upon which we can paint our own unique story of defiance and determination. Think of the times in your own life when you felt as though you were pushing against an insurmountable force, a task that never seemed to end. Now, consider for a moment that those very efforts, despite their repetitiveness, gave substance and texture to your everyday existence. In embracing the perpetual struggle, much like Sisyphus, you find that the fight itself becomes a profound affirmation of life. It is a reminder that living authentically means relishing both the victories and the setbacks, knowing that each contributes to the tapestry of your lifetime. Yet, acknowledging the absurd and celebrating the struggle is not a mere intellectual exercise. It is a call to live differently. Embracing absurdism means consciously deciding how you want to live each day, fully aware of the world's inherent uncertainties. It invites you not to resign yourself to passivity, but to seize your freedom and create your own meaning. At the heart of this philosophy lie three essential components: freedom, passion, and revolt. First, freedom is attained by recognizing that without an absolute cosmic meaning, we are entirely responsible for the values we choose to embrace. With this realization comes a liberating truth. No external authority dictates your worth or your purpose. You are the architect of your life, capable of designing a personalized set of values that reflect your unique experiences and aspirations. Next, consider passion. In a life unburdened by preordained meaning, passion becomes your guide, a call to plunge into the moments and experiences that set your soul ablaze. Whether it is your creative pursuits, your relationships, or your personal curiosities, living passionately means savoring every moment as if it were a rare, irreplaceable gift. It is a reminder that even in a universe that may seem indifferent, the fire within you can shine forth, illuminating the darkness and inspiring you to write your own narrative. And then there is revolt. Revolt, in this philosophical context, is not one of anger or destruction, but of a gentle yet relentless defiance. It is the daily act of saying, despite the absence of inherent meaning, I choose to live with courage and integrity. Revolt is the refusal to be cowed by life's uncertainties. It is the determination to find beauty, joy, and fulfillment, even when everything might seem devoid of cosmic purpose. In this stance, every moment becomes a deliberate affirmation of life's worth. Imagine how different our daily lives might seem if we adopted this mindset. Instead of feeling trapped by the repetitive nature of our routines, we begin to see each day as an opportunity, a blank canvas on which we can sketch our hopes, dreams, and even our failures. Each morning then becomes a declaration. I will live fully. I will create meaning where none is handed to me. And I will cherish the struggle because it is in that struggle we find our truest selves. Taking a closer look at Albert Camus' own life further illuminates how these ideas were not merely abstract theories for him. Camus was not content with sitting in an ivory tower and theorizing about life. He lived his philosophy through every choice he made. Despite facing significant hardships and personal challenges, he maintained a zest for living that resonated in his writings and personal anecdotes alike. Camus' early years were marked by the hardships of poverty and the complexities of life in colonial Algeria. Yet, far from succumbing to bitterness, he nurtured a deep love for the arts, for sports, and for the camaraderie of fellow thinkers and creatives. He was known to immerse himself in the vibrant world of literature and theater, drawing inspiration from both classical and contemporary sources. The robust intensity of his personal passions found expression in his novels, plays, and essays, works that continue to challenge and inspire readers today. One might ask, how did Camus reconcile the harsh recognition of life's absurdity with the beauty he saw in the world? The answer lies in his relentless commitment to living authentically. Camus embraced the complexity of human emotions, understanding that vulnerability and wonder are equally parts of the human experience. For him, the act of writing was not just an intellectual pursuit, but a celebration of the messy, unpredictable, and ultimately precious nature of life. Consider, too, the quiet moments in his life, times when he would retreat with a book, soak in the quiet stillness of nature, or share a laugh with close friends. In these moments, the grand questions of existence took on a more nuanced hue. Instead of fixating on the potential futility of life's search for meaning, Camus chose to savor the brightness of fleeting joy, the solace found in human connection, and the creative energy that bursts forth in moments of genuine passion. His life stands as a testament to the idea that even if the universe offers no ready-made purpose, we can and must find our own light within the darkness. Over the decades since Camus' time, his ideas have sparked intense discussion and debate. His thoughts influenced not only fellow philosophers, but also artists, writers, and thinkers across various fields. Some have applauded his insistence on personal freedom and authenticity, while others have critiqued his perspective as overly somber or even paradoxical. For instance, certain critics argued that By rejecting all external sources of meaning, one risks falling into a kind of existential inertia. Yet, even those who raise such concerns must acknowledge that Camus's message is one of profound empowerment. It is the idea that in the very act of accepting life's unanswerable questions, we are granted the freedom to design our destinies on our own terms. Let's take a moment to reflect on the everyday implications of this philosophy. Have you ever found yourself locked in a cycle of routines, where the days blur together and every effort feels like a drop in a bottomless bucket? Camus would ask you to consider that each repetition, each small victory and setback is a testament to the strength of your own resolve. By embracing the absurd condition, you unlock an inner power, a rebellion against a fate that might otherwise leave you numb. It is not a call for reckless abandon, but rather a gentle yet firm insistence that you are the master of your own narrative. Imagine sitting at a cafe on a rainy day, watching droplets race down a window pane, each one following its own unpredictable path. In that swirl of ephemeral motion, you see a reflection of life itself, a series of unpredictable moments against a vast, dark canvas. There is beauty in that randomness. There is a kind of poetry in every twist and turn, a call to engage with life with all your heart, despite its inherent uncertainty. This is the invitation of absurdism, to celebrate the journey even when the destination is unknown. Of course, any discussion of such a profound philosophy is incomplete without addressing some of the critical voices that have emerged over time. Notable figures in existential and phenomenological thought, some of whom shared parts of Camus' ideas, have challenged him to clarify the implications of a life lived without predetermined meaning. Critics have sometimes argued that by focusing on individual rebellion against the absurd, Camus might risk isolating personal experience from a broader social context. Others question whether rejecting traditional systems of meaning can truly provide the guidance people need in moments of profound uncertainty. Yet, it is precisely in the fertile ground of these criticisms that Camus's work finds its complexity and enduring relevance. His insistence that life must be lived in the face of absurdity invites us to continuously question not just what life means, but how we come to assign meaning to it. For instance, while traditional philosophies might prescribe a fixed moral order or a universal truth, Camus champions a more democratic approach to values, one that is earned through lived experience rather than imposed from above. In doing so, his philosophy not only challenges conventional wisdom, but also grants each of us permission to become the authors of our own ethical codes. It is worth noting that while this path requires courage, indeed, tremendous inner strength, it also offers unparalleled rewards. By accepting that there is no ultimate cosmic script, we free ourselves from the relentless pressure to measure up to ideals that simply do not exist. Instead, we are invited to engineer a life that is uniquely ours, full of colors that we choose, and textured by the unpredictable pulses of our own passions. In this light, absurdism is not a resignation to meaninglessness, but an affirmation of life's potential to be extraordinary in its every moment, regardless of external validation. Now, I invite you to pause and internalize these ideas. Picture yourself navigating a labyrinth where every possible exit remains hidden, not because there is no way out, but because the journey itself is where the true wonder lies. Have you ever experienced moments when the unpredictability of life felt like both a burden and a blessing at once? Think of the unexpected encounters that filled your day with laughter, or the challenges that forced you to dig deeper to discover your free spirit. These moments, no matter how fleeting, are proofs of your unwavering capacity to live deliberately and courageously, even in the face of life's inherent uncertainties. In our modern world, where rapid technological advances and constant connectivity can sometimes drown out the subtleties of human existence, Camus's philosophy invites us to re-examine the core of what it means to be alive. It asks us to look beyond the superficial trappings of social media likes and trending topics, to instead focus on creating genuine relationships, forging personal values, and cherishing every experience as a testament to our personal freedom. The challenge is not to find an ultimate answer to the meaning of life, but to ensure that every day is lived with intention, creativity, and passion. It is in these choices, small and large, that the true essence of being human manifests. Let's now revisit the metaphor of Sisyphus, for it remains one of the most compelling images in advocating this way of living. When we hear the story of Sisyphus, our minds might initially focus on the endless cycle of effort and futility. But what if we reframe our perspective? What if we see Sisyphus not as a victim of fate, but as a triumphant rebel who, despite knowing that his rock will always roll back down, chooses to keep pushing it upward? This perspective requires a shift, a recognition that life's value does not depend on a final, definitive outcome, but on the beauty of the struggle itself. Each day, much like Sisyphus, we face our own boulder, the challenges, the disappointments, and the uncertainties that life hurls our way. And each day we must decide, do we let the weight of that boulder crush our spirit, or do we, with a spark of defiant beauty, push it upward, one determined step at a time? This decision, repeated countless times in the quiet moments of reflection, is a declaration of our own agency. It is a bold statement that even in a world where ultimate meaning is elusive, every effort, every setback, and every small victory adds a rich layer to our tapestry of life. In embracing Camus' philosophy of the absurd, we also encounter a timeless call to creativity. It is a call to bend the rigid structures of expectation and to reimagine what it means to live with courage. Without an externally imposed blueprint for meaning, each of us is free to explore the realms of art, literature, music, and even the simple act of conversation as avenues to forge our unique identity. Every poem you write, every melody you hum, every story you share with a friend, all of these become acts of rebellion against a void that threatens to sap the color from our days. To be clear, this perspective is not about denying the momentary pangs of sadness or the occasional sense of loss that punctuates our lives. On the contrary, acknowledging the absurd allows us to embrace the full spectrum of our emotional experience. We learn that it is okay to feel uncertainty, to question our place in the cosmos, and even to experience moments of vulnerability. Yet, through this very process, we also discover an inner strength, a quiet, enduring resolve that propels us forward even when the answers remain elusive. In this way, being human becomes an endless evolving work of art, where each stroke on the canvas contributes to a masterpiece that is uniquely yours. There are countless historical and contemporary examples of individuals who, much like Camus, have chosen to confront life's inherent lack of predetermined meaning with bold creativity and heartfelt passion. Artists who create masterpieces without waiting for external validation, entrepreneurs who dare to build dreams from scratch, and everyday people who strive to find moments of joy in small acts of kindness, all embody the spirit of the absurd. They remind us that while the universe may not hand us meaning on a silver platter, it bestows upon us the freedom and the challenge to create it ourselves. Consider the story of a musician who pours their soul into composing melodies that evoke deep emotion, even though they never claimed that the music would change the world. Or think of the writer who, night after night, challenges the silence by scribbling tales of hope and struggle on a blank page. These endeavors, however humble or grand, are all acts of courageous revolt against a seemingly indifferent cosmos. They illustrate that while meaning may not be found waiting for us, it is forged in the very act of living deliberately and authentically. Now, let's turn our attention to another facet of Camus' thought that speaks directly to our modern experience: the idea of personal responsibility and choice. In a society where many of us feel overwhelmed by societal expectations, where the noise of external standards drowns out our inner voice, Camus' assertion that we are the authors of our own destiny serves as a powerful catalyst for personal empowerment. Who among us has not felt the pressure to conform, to follow a path laid out by family, culture, or tradition, when deep down, our hearts call for something different? When we embrace the absurd, we implicitly reject the idea that there is one right way to live. Instead, we are encouraged to explore, experiment, and ultimately decide for ourselves. This freedom is both a blessing and a responsibility. It means that every choice, every decision, becomes an act of creation, a way to infuse the mundane with extraordinary significance. In this light, life is transformed from a series of predetermined steps into a dynamic dance of possibility, where every moment is an opportunity to shape what is yet to come. Imagine a painter before a blank canvas, where no preconceived notion of beauty dictates the strokes of the brush. The painter is free, not just to mirror reality, but to redefine it through color, form, and texture. In the same way, when we accept that life has no explicit blueprint, we gain the power to reimagine our existence. Each decision, each small gesture of kindness, every heartfelt laugh, becomes a deliberate act of self-expression, a testament to the indomitable human spirit that refuses to be defined by the absence of cosmic order. As we continue to unravel the layers of Camus' absurdism, it is essential to address the nuanced debates surrounding his ideas. Some critics have contended that by rejecting traditional sources of meaning, we risk plunging into a void of nihilism and apathy. However, Camus was careful to distinguish his philosophy from nihilism. Rather than advocating for a life bereft of values or a descent into despair, Camus called on us to rise above the void through conscious revolt. He maintained that acknowledging the absurd condition is not an invitation to give up, but to engage more deeply with the beauty of the struggle. This difference is significant. Nihilism suggests that nothing matters at all, leaving us adrift in a sea of indifference. In contrast, Camus's absurdism recognizes that while the universe might not hand us ready-made meanings, the very act of searching, resisting, and creating our own values imbues our lives with profound significance. By embracing the tension between our internal desires and the external indifference of the world, we ignite a fire within that propels us forward, an inner revolution that transforms routine existence into a rich, ever-evolving adventure. Over the years, many have sought to reconcile Camus's ideas with other philosophical schools of thought, such as existentialism and Stoicism. While there are overlaps, especially in terms of individual freedom and responsibility, Camus's thinking remains distinct in its insistence on celebrating the raw, unfiltered experience of life. He was not content with platitudes or empty assurances. Instead, he urged us to confront the paradoxes of existence head-on. In doing so, he opened a space for a more liberated and honest form of living, one that accepts uncertainty without surrendering to it. Let's now dive deeper into a few reflective anecdotes and vivid examples that illustrate how embracing the absurd can manifest in everyday life. Imagine an elderly man who, after decades of routine work and familiar habits, wakes up with a renewed sense of possibility. He decides that rather than resigning himself to the slow march of time, he will take up painting, a passion he had shelved for years in favor of practicality. Though the canvases he paints are nothing like masterpieces, each brushstroke becomes a celebration of the moment, a defiant assertion that life is precious irrespective of its outcome. This man, in his quiet way, embodies the absurd hero's spirit, accepting that there may be no grand meaning to the act of painting, yet choosing to paint with every fiber of his being. Picture also a young woman walking the bustling streets of a busy city, where every face in the crowd seems lost in their own routine. Instead of succumbing to a sense of alienation, she makes a conscious decision to smile at strangers, to strike up brief conversations, and to find beauty in small acts of everyday kindness. While the grand tapestry of life remains enigmatic, her daily gestures create ripples of warmth and connection that transform a cold, indifferent environment into a space of shared human experience. By choosing to act with intention and compassion, she asserts, "I may not have all the answers, but I will make each moment count." In this way, her life becomes a living artwork, a mosaic of moments that defies the void of meaninglessness. Even in the realm of work and career, many have found solace in Camus' perspective. Consider the creative entrepreneur who, in a market saturated with fleeting trends and ever-changing demands, decides to follow an unconventional path. Instead of chasing a formula for success dictated by external norms, this individual opts to build a business around passion, innovation, and genuine service. Although the journey is rife with uncertainties and setbacks, every small victory is a triumph, a declaration that meaning is forged in the act of creation, not handed down by an absent destiny. This approach is not without risk, yet it exemplifies the essence of living with courage and creativity, even when the rules of the game seem perpetually in flux. It is also important to acknowledge that embracing absurdism does not imply a denial of life's sorrows or hardships. Indeed, Camus was not blind to the pain and challenges that punctuate our existence. Instead, he saw these very experiences as intrinsic to the human condition, an integral part of the tapestry that makes life both unpredictable and ultimately beautiful. Embracing the absurd means accepting the full range of emotions, the laughter, the love, the grief, the disappointments. It is a call to live honestly, without the safety net of prepackaged answers. When we choose to welcome even the bittersweet moments of life, we also learn to appreciate the transient beauty that lies in impermanence. The recognition that no feeling lasts forever can, paradoxically, empower us to cherish each experience more deeply. It is by acknowledging both the light and the shadows that we allow ourselves to live with greater authenticity. In essence, the philosophy of absurdism becomes a celebration of life's ephemeral nature, a reminder that every moment, like a delicate brushstroke on a vast canvas, contributes to the masterpiece of our existence. Remember, in the grand symphony of life, every note matters, every silence speaks volumes, and every moment of struggle is simply another stroke in the painting of your extraordinary journey. Embrace it all, and let your unique story unfold with strength, humor, and an unwavering commitment to the beauty of the now. Extreme minimalism, living with the minimum necessary to flourish. This concept will blow your mind. What if I told you that in a world obsessed with accumulation and excess, having less could actually mean living more fully? Imagine a lifestyle where you intentionally pare down not only your material possessions, but also the overwhelming stream of thoughts, desires, and even relationships that weigh you down. Today we're diving deep into extreme minimalism, a philosophy that asks us to question everything we take for granted about abundance, happiness, and fulfillment. Have you ever looked around and felt suffocated by clutter? Perhaps it wasn't just the mess in your room, but the constant buzz of ideas and expectations that leaves little space for genuine joy. Extreme minimalism isn't only about tidying up your physical space. It's a radical rethinking of how you live. It invites you to step back and ask, what is truly necessary for me to thrive? Instead of following the conventional wisdom that more is always better, this approach challenges you to discover the beauty and clarity that come when you consciously choose only what really matters. In today's video, we will embark on a journey that begins with a simple yet powerful question. Could less really be more? We'll share stories, historical insights, and even a few laughs along the way, as we explore how dialing back on the non-essential can open up a world of possibility and creativity. Whether you're curious about redesigning your living space, decluttering your mind, or reassessing the quality of your relationships, you're in the right place. Get ready to be inspired and perhaps even surprised as we learn together that extreme minimalism is not about deprivation, it's about liberation. So let's challenge the modern idea that more is always better and discover what happens when we embrace the joy of having just enough. Let's get started, shall we? Before we jump into the practicalities of extreme minimalism, it helps to understand the historical and philosophical roots behind this compelling lifestyle. Minimalism as an idea did not originate with modern interior design trends or the latest clean your closet challenges. Its origins can be traced back to ancient philosophies and cultural practices that prize simplicity and mindfulness over material excess. Consider the Zen masters of Eastern traditions, for example, who taught that true clarity of mind is achieved not by accumulating more, but by letting go of what distracts us. Similarly, the Stoics, great thinkers such as Epictetus and Marcus Aurelius, reminded us that happiness comes not from having everything we desire, but from wanting very little. In the 20th century, as consumer culture reached fever pitch and possessions became symbols of success, a counterculture began to emerge. Artists, writers, and philosophers looked around and asked, is more really better? They started to notice that even as their homes overflowed with objects, their lives felt cluttered and unsatisfying. This cultural shift, which gained momentum in the 1960s and 1970s, was characterized by a return to authenticity and a search for meaning beyond material wealth. In response, the minimalist movement began to take shape, not just as a design aesthetic, but as a way of life that posits that simplicity is the key to genuine happiness. Fast forward to today, and extreme minimalism has evolved further. It's no longer just about having fewer things. It's about stripping your life of all the unnecessary, from physical clutter to mental noise, and even superfluous social obligations. In our hyper-connected, overstimulated modern world, the idea of living with less is more relevant than ever. Studies in psychology and neuroscience suggest that an overload of information and possessions can actually hinder our ability to focus, be creative, and enjoy life. In contrast, a minimalist environment offers a sanctuary, a space where each item, each thought, each relationship is carefully considered and valued for its true contribution to our well-being. Extreme minimalism, then, is not about austerity for its own sake. It's a practical, holistic approach to life that encourages you to carefully curate every aspect of your existence. From the moment you wake up until you close your eyes at night, you have the opportunity to choose simplicity over chaos, authenticity over conformity. With this background in mind, we now turn to the heart of our discussion. How can you practically implement extreme minimalism to create a life that is both fulfilling and beautifully simple? Let's begin by taking a hard look at our physical surroundings. Our possessions tell a story about who we are, but too often that story is cluttered by items that no longer serve a meaningful purpose. Start by examining your living space. Every object you own, whether it's a piece of furniture, a knick-knack, or even a stack of books, should have a reason for being there. Ask yourself questions like, does this item spark joy? Is it functional, or is it merely taking up space? The process of decluttering, step by step, can be both a cathartic and humorous experience. Often we hold on to items just in case, only to realize later that they amount to nothing more than physical and mental baggage. For example, think about that drawer in your kitchen filled with gadgets you rarely use. How many of those tools have you actually needed in the past year? By letting go of the unnecessary, you free your space and your mind to focus on the essentials. This process is not about losing a part of yourself. It's about rediscovering what truly matters. As you sift through your belongings, you'll start to notice a pattern. The items that withstand the test of time are usually those associated with positive memories, practical utility, or genuine beauty. These are the reminders of who you are and what you value most. In setting aside the extraneous, you create an environment that reflects your inner priorities. But physical clutter is only part of the equation. Our mental space, too, is often crowded with thoughts, worries, and desires that serve little purpose other than to complicate our lives. Extreme minimalism encourages us to apply the same principle of less is more to our internal world. Imagine your mind as a room filled with endless chatter, a constant stream of what-ifs, should-haves, and needless to-dos. Over time, this mental clutter can lead to stress, indecision, and even a sense of paralysis. To counter this, consider adopting practices like mindfulness and meditation. These methods don't require you to abandon thinking altogether. Rather, they teach you to filter your thoughts, retaining those that truly matter and letting go of the rest. It might sound intimidating at first to consider reducing your inner dialogue, but think of it as cleaning a whiteboard. When you erase all the unnecessary scribbles, you're left with a clear space to write what is truly important. You might even start to find that by focusing on fewer, more intentional thoughts, your creativity and clarity of purpose increase dramatically. It's a bit like upgrading your mental operating system, one that runs more smoothly because it isn't bogged down by useless programs. Next, let's talk about relationships. In today's digital era, it's easy to accumulate a vast network of acquaintances through social media, email, and other forms of communication. However, not every connection is enriching. Extreme minimalism prompts you to evaluate the quality of your relationships rather than the quantity. Consider the people in your life. Who truly adds value? Who challenges you, supports you, and inspires you to be your best self? It may be necessary, albeit sometimes emotionally challenging, to step back from relationships that do not contribute positively to your well-being. This doesn't mean you must sever all ties with those who disagree with you or who lead different lifestyles. Rather, it's about discerning where your energy is best invested. Imagine simplifying your social calendar to include only those gatherings and commitments that leave you feeling genuinely refreshed and inspired, rather than drained and overwhelmed. By streamlining your interactions, you allow more room for deep, meaningful connections to flourish. You might even find that when you are not constantly distracted by superficial interactions, your conversations become richer, and your moments of connection become more profound. Now, let's move from these introspective practices to actionable steps. How exactly do you begin this journey toward extreme minimalism? The key is to start small and build gradually. One effective approach is to designate a specific area of your life as a starting point. This could be a single room in your home, a daily journal where you reflect on your thoughts, or even a weekend sabbatical from social media. Focus all your attention on this one domain, and experiment with creating more space there, both physically and metaphorically. As you experience the benefits in one area, you'll likely feel motivated to extend these practices to other parts of your life. Consider creating what I like to call a minimalist challenge. For instance, try spending one day a week without any digital distractions. No scrolling through feeds, no emails, just pure presence in the moment. Notice how the quiet helps you reconnect with your inner self and appreciate the simplicity of life. Alternatively, engage in a decluttering project that lasts 30 days, where each day you remove one item that doesn't add value to your existence. Such challenges not only help you reduce excess, but also build a sustainable habit of thoughtful living. It's important to recognize that this journey isn't about perfection or rigid rules. Extreme minimalism is a fluid, evolving process that adapts to your circumstances and needs. There will be days when you feel drawn to distractions, or when the allure of accumulation calls to you. And that's perfectly normal. The goal isn't to force a permanent state of austerity, but rather to cultivate a mindset that continuously strives for clarity, simplicity, and purpose. Humor can play a big role in this journey. Laugh at the absurdity of our modern lifestyles when you catch yourself buying something you don't truly need or overthinking a trivial matter. One particularly helpful practice is journaling. By writing down your daily experiences, thoughts, and decisions regarding what truly matters, you begin to see patterns, both good and bad. Over time, you may notice that certain recurring desires or anxieties are nothing more than echoes of societal pressures. Once you become aware of these patterns, you can actively choose to let them go. The process of writing not only clears the mental clutter, but also serves as a mirror reflecting your deepest values and aspirations. Another crucial part of extreme minimalism is learning the art of saying no. In a world where every opportunity seems important and every invitation feels obligatory, declining invitations or requests can feel uncomfortable. Yet, saying no is essential to preserving your limited resources, time, energy, and attention for what really matters. It is an act of self-respect and self-care. By turning down what doesn't align with your core values, you leave space for the relationships, projects, and ideas that do. The benefits of embracing extreme minimalism are far-reaching. Many who undertake this journey report a profound sense of freedom and empowerment. They discover that by reducing distractions, they are able to focus more intently on their passions and goals. The simplicity opens the door for creativity, deep reflection, and even better physical and mental health. It's comparable to pruning a tree. By cutting away the excess, the remaining branches grow stronger and more resilient over time. As you progress along this path, you'll find that extreme minimalism is not a destination, but a continuous journey of mindful choices. Every day offers an opportunity to reassess what deserves your attention and what can be let go. The journey may have its challenges, but the rewards, a more intentional, vibrant, and fulfilling life, make every step worthwhile. Remember, this philosophy is not about loss, but about gain. Gaining clarity, gaining time, and ultimately, gaining the freedom to live your life on your own terms. As we wrap up today's exploration, take a moment to reflect on the power of extreme minimalism. By consciously reducing the clutter in our lives, be it material, mental, or emotional, we open up space for what truly enriches us. Extreme minimalism is not a call to austerity. It's an invitation to live more deliberately, to focus on quality over quantity, and to invest in what genuinely fosters growth and happiness. I encourage you to ask yourself, what can I let go of today? How can you create more room in your life for the people, ideas, and opportunities that matter most? Every small step you take towards simplicity paves the way for a more vibrant and meaningful existence. Thank you for joining me on this journey toward living with less, so that you may ultimately flourish with just the minimum necessary. Until next time, keep questioning, keep simplifying, and remember that in doing so, you are truly embracing the art of a well-lived life.